Hi, Ryan.
Hello, Rachel.
How are you on this fine day?
Oh, I'm doing fine and dandy. How about yourself?
Oh, patching myself up, licking my wounds and trying to move forward.
Wow, sounds like you got into a bit of a scrape.
Skirmish?
Oh, a skirmish. I thought you were still recuperating from the totally fair fight that we had during our one-ship battle. If people haven't listened to our one-ship discussions, you're really missing out. We have a lot of fun during those. But Rachel, I'm glad that you were strong enough to make it to the recording today.
Yes, I am strong enough to join you here on our coverage of The Expanse, a sci-fi TV show that we are watching for the first time. And previously we have not engaged with the source material because this show is based on books.
There's also a game, there's also graphic novels. None of that has been touched by us. We are first-timers, so if you are out there wanting a companion podcast for your own first-time experience with The Expanse, feel free to join us. Or if you're very familiar and you get a kick out of people just bumble and stumble their way through the series, then you can join in as well. Although I think you and I, Rachel, we do pretty good. I think we do pretty good with being able to track what the show is doing and where it's taking us.
We've made it so far. But where are we up to, Ryan? Remind totally not me and the audience what this episode is called, and fill me in on what IMDb / the DVDs say is what happens.
We are on the final season. We are on episode 4 of season 6, Redoubt, and we have a description that goes as such. A controversial decision puts Holden at odds with his crew. On series, Avasarala struggles to contain an escalating humanitarian crisis. Drummer's growing faction stage a daring raid. Philip makes an unexpected discovery. Rachel, we're near the end now.
Yes.
We're so close to the end.
And we feel very far from where we started.
Very
in
far.
lots of ways.
So much has changed, but we still remain the same. We are named Yumyumpod because of that amazing line of dialogue from Star Trek Discovery that was both silly and sexy. The two S's, the most important SS. And we like to look at The Expanse through that second S, the sexy. The series started out very horny. Remember when they played the Black Keys? Remember when they played a song from them in an episode?
Yeah.
And then introduced Jim Holden fucking in Zero G? How far the series has come since then. We've had actual on-screen nudity with female-presenting nipples. We've had Amos get a sex scene. But what has been going on with the status of the sexiness in the final season?
The sexiness is so low. It's dried up, Ryan.
We've got to leave it for the finale.
It's dried up.
They're leaving the cum shot for the final shot of the series. Whose cum shot will it be? We haven't. Holden's been sexy. Amos has been sexy. But who hasn't had the chance to be sexy in this series? I'll give you my answer for who is Yum Yum in this episode, where they made me lick my lips, throw my hair back, and say Yum Yum. And it was Cortazar. That guy was fucking horny.
Got so excited
science.
to see him.
He had his beard back.
Yeah.
Remember last time we saw him, I didn't recognize him because he didn't have his beard?
Yeah, I'd forgotten.
He grew it in, and he was so jazzed up about evil science. And remember how happy we used to be with the amount of evil scientists? They did ease up on the evil scientists. They front-loaded them, but They have one remaining, and it's Cortazar.
Yeah.
And he made me feel very yum.
I'm struggling because I have to pick two things. And Cortazar did not make me feel yum, even though he had a boner for science.
And a beard.
Boner and beard, the two BBs.
Better than Breaking Bad.
I am gonna go with Bobby losing her shit over the odds in the galley.
Fair enough. She was a hothead.
Yeah, she was a hothead. And it just delighted me in a specific sort of way. And her physicality, I guess. That's my non-automatic Amos pick.
You must have really struggled to find the automatic Amos pick because Rachel must always, automatically, almost, you could say, pick Amos being sexy in some way because you could not help yourself at the beginning of our podcasting coverage of The Expanse, to the point in which I said, you have to have an Amos pick every single time, and we all love it. Our Patreon has a community Discord channel in which people have made bets over the course of our run about what you find particularly yum in an episode and see if they're correct or not. I don't know what they have for the final season. If they've been locking them in, I sure hope so. But what do you have for the fourth episode of this final season? What did Amos do that made you sweat, that made you fan yourself and go, my.
Not a my, but that's my boy. When he's like to Holden, are you pissed at me for asking or because you don't have an explanation to give?
Reminiscent to how it was in season 1 when they were on the outside of a ship repairing things and there was hostilities in the air over what Jim had decided to do.
And Amos now trusts Holden to do the right thing, but he wants an explanation.
See, here's my problem. I trust you to do the right thing. What you think it is. We had a chance to end DeMarco. And you pulled the punch. And I keep trying, but I can't see how that was the right thing.
It was a gut decision in the moment, but I made the call.
What are we here to do now, Rachel? We're here to fully discuss this. No more what was sexy or describing ourselves in the podcast. We're here now to talk about Redoubt. So where do you want to begin with this?
This episode was pretty solid. It juggled everything fairly well, but it was all very obvious of what each of the things were doing. It was just a continuation of all of these things that we've set up, and it pretty much had exactly what I expected of it. But it wasn't bad. It just delivered what I expected.
Do you need the series to throw curveballs and pull the rug at this stage of the game?
Not necessarily, but I do want something out, a little bit of spice to delight me in an interesting way. Like when Joseph... Is it Joseph?
He's missing a H at the end, so it's a belter.
Yeah.
Just, you call him Joey. So Joey.
Joey losing an arm. It's just like, oh, of course. Something needs to go wrong on the heist, but they need to get away with it. So he loses an arm. And it's just like, oh, yep, that's the easy way to ratchet up the tension for drama without, like, putting a whole lot of pressure. But it's personal, it's intimate, it is logical. Like, we know that is a danger in space, and it's a danger that characters have faced before, and I didn't really enjoy it when they did it with Holden either.
I thought this episode was like you said, solid. It told its story well. You find the predictability to be a barrier. I don't mind because it's honest storytelling. They've set up the pieces and now they're falling into place. Yes, we may be able to track where a bunch of it is going, but I don't mind that per se. One of the things I liked about the episode was the parallels between Marco and Holden, but the differences too, in which both characters were facing people coming up against them and telling them that they're wrong and questioning their leadership, questioning their choices, and giving an honest opinion, in which we walked away from the people who talked to those characters, like with Amos talking to Holden or with Rosenfeld talking to Marco, siding with those people rather than the main person there. Like, you don't agree with Marco ever, but you don't agree with Holden necessarily either, but
you understand.
And I thought that the way that they had the mirror between these two was not so blatant and obvious. I thought it was just very natural. And that's how I describe a lot of the episode. Natural. Too bad this all gets undercut by Laconia, which is unnatural.
Which is where we start.
I hate it. I hate it.
And it is following the exact beat that we predicted.
It's still taking its time.
She appears to be taking the body of her dead brother to the strange dog that doesn't look anything like a dog that's in the woods, that's not really the woods, that maybe can reanimate him.
Fix him. Please use the correct term. They're going to fix him. Not reanimate or resurrect or heal. They're going to fix him. Yes, that is the end point of this, but it is not the material of the Laconia
we get a very
stuff.
Weird conversation with an admiral that's talking to a child, but is really talking to the audience.
Well, before we even get to that character, whoever he is, he's fascinating. But the brother died, and we didn't know how in the last episode because they had to withhold it from us for a whole entire thing. And what do they reveal?
Remember how she almost got ran over running through the woods? Well, it turns out that her brother got ran over.
Yeah, the car tipped over, the kid died, and that's, I honestly think that's a funny and well done payoff for how this kid died, rather than the alien life killed the kid. The kid got killed by sheer incompetence of humanity. It was an accident, of course,
an accident that could have happened on any fucking planet.
But also, it shouldn't have happened. Because we were saying this in previous episodes, this colony, for one that's run by these supremacist, militaristic nut jobs, sure seems sloppy. It's sloppy through and through. They just don't have any setup. We don't really get a sense that there's any order to this. It's sloppier than Illis in a lot of ways to me. That children are running around unsupervised, cars are just revving through areas. Like, it's a complete shit show. It's a complete shit show. And I actually really appreciate the dissonance that they've been building up with that, because we've talked about Laconia and how it's hard to get invested because not only the lack of time and will this pay off, but we don't have a frame of reference. We don't have the pieces. We don't have the context for what Laconia is and how it operates. But that's been slowly building up more and more, where those things that we looked at and said, that's a bit weird or that's a bit iffy, are actually paying off. So the brother dying not because of aliens, but because of fuck-ups from humanity, I think that works. They keep telling the story of the society of Laconia in very muffled background dialogue. It's a very deliberate choice. They constantly have kept doing this over and over and over again, in which it's not as if you and I are not keenly trying to keep aware of the details of the series, but it's like they're really trying to hide the information from you.
Yeah, it's very much feeling like you're not meant to have figured this out yet. And it's unusual because the Expanse hasn't treated us like we're that dumb.
I think they
in a while.
I don't think that they're trying to treat us as dumb. I think they're trying to make the weirdness of Laconia intriguing. But I honestly would rather just know how it works. And what's the purpose? Not even just, I don't need right now the answers to what's the thing in the sky and what's the bad admiral getting up to. But I would love to know how they have convinced people to come here, because it's not just people from Mars like we thought it was. There's people from Earth, there's people maybe from the belt, I'm not too sure. We don't know. Exactly, we don't know. And he has this comment, the Admiral, of, we were going to send your family to Paris on Earth to log the information that we've collected here. So this whole entire Laconia effort is spread across the systems. But I don't know, again, I don't know how any of it works. Like, what convinces people to come to Laconia? Because I understood in the last season what did. And the Admiral talks about it in his bizarre speech to the little girl. But what convinced her parents to come here? What convinced their friends? What convinced the people who said in hushed tones, they're going to use a firing squad? That's crazy. What convinced these people to come here? And why are they still here? I know it's hard to leave, but you know what I'm saying? I
don't get it. And I don't know how much of an explanation they're going to be able to give us. Because we're running out of time.
What is your current read on the society of Laconia from the pieces we have been getting?
Other than it's fucked?
In what ways is it fucked?
Well, they don't seem to be doing a very good job at keeping people safe. They seem to be gathering data, but that's, probably mostly on Cortazar, because he's a fucking whack job who gets shit done.
There's a survival of the fittest element here, and a very strict, you fuck up, you're out. They say that the person who hit this kid will most likely get executed for it, even if it was an accident. There is no leniency here.
No, and that was set up on the Martian ship that got eaten by the ring.
Yeah, that's true.
But we didn't know that was actually going to be the case on Laconia because we didn't know how connected those two things were.
Oh, I see. That I understood being connected enough.
But it's just well, are they going to continue that way? Is it going to be enforceable? Because we got the introduction of the other aspects of this community.
Yes, that is all true. But this particular opening from Laconia does give us a deeper insight to, I guess, the character of Laconian culture via this admiral. This admiral comes over and he speaks to the little girl. And you know what it reminded me of a lot?
What?
It reminded me of a less overtly manic version of Aaron Wright's speech to his son.
Yeah, that's a good comparison to draw.
This fundamentally broken, most likely psychotic individual trying to instill upon the youth this value that matters to them, even though they think the dream that they've lived for and fought for may be spinning out of their control. But if they do just one or two or three or just more heinous things, we will be able to achieve the dream.
Anything in pursuit of the goal.
How did it make you feel?
Honestly, it made me feel gross. Because he starts off saying things that are yeah, that's a nice thing to, say to a child who's just lost a sibling. And then it just keeps going, and then you're horrified. Because he's just like, well, she's like, I know it's okay to be sad. And he's just like, grief's more complicated than just being sad. And, that's a lie that adults tell you.
And themselves.
Because they want it to be that simple, but it's not. And it's like, that's really true. Grief is a lot more complicated than just sadness. It's not just being sad.
He sounds like a cult leader more than a military leader.
Yeah, I get that.
Because he says that we have to make sacrifices and we have to make them sacred. And there's just this way that he's speaking to us very friendly, in a very soothing way, but he's clearly playing an angle on her. And it reminds me of cult leaders. This has actually been a joke in our community Discord, but I didn't think it would actually come to pass. But I made a joke that this series loves to reference Babylon 5 from time to time in minor ways. And wouldn't it be funny if the leader of Laconia was played by Robin Atkin Downes, aka Byron, from Babylon 5? And this guy is not like Byron, but he has a lot of that Byronisms of like the weird cult leader.
Yeah.
I mean to do the greatness for my kind, and I'm going to convince you that you should do the same, and I'm going to dress it up.
I will be a messiah, but don't treat me like a messiah.
And we get why he's become this way. Because the dream of Mars failed. People gave up on it. He felt scared and alone. And he's going to bring that dream of Mars, like this little girl's going to bring, this to Laconia. We're going to bring our dreams and make them come true. And he has this very telling perspective of it's up to us to save them from themselves attitude. Like, if we get this right, we'll win and we'll be able to save everyone. And, like, what does that mean? Like, to you?
To me, it means making everybody like him. Like, everybody working towards this goal and conquering more of the universe. That's what I'm thinking.
When I was where you are now, I needed something to make it more than just death. I needed to make it a sacrifice. Do you know what sacrifice means?
To give something up.
Yeah. But it's more than that. It's to give something up and make it sacred.
How about we move on to some more interesting material? We are on Ceres Station and the reaction to the bombing.
Yeah, the leader of Ceres being like, we need to fucking kick the inners out. It doesn't matter who blew the tanks. They need to get out of here.
And we know who we should be serving. Even after everything Marco has done, she's still saying that we should fall in line because they're the power that opposes the oppressors we've known.
So they must be on our side. The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
But Marco's the one that's fucked them in the first place.
Yeah.
And she knows it.
She knows it. But her hatred is her prejudice blinds her.
As we see...
And blinds many other people across the whole solar system.
Specifically around this area. Because Christian has to be the voice of reason yet again. We have that Martian captain, or I guess she's an admiral now perhaps, who was a very reasonable person the last couple of times we've seen her, very level-headed. But now she is reacting in a very aggressive and mean-spirited way, just as the woman in charge of Sirius Station of just this reactionary response to things. We're not going to take the moment to pause and think. We're just going to react now because she's saying, well, if they don't want us here, fuck them. How about we get all of our ships and go to the ring and attack it and take it back? Who cares about the cost? Who cares about the toll? Who cares about
need to be independent, and that is the only thing that matters.
Who cares about securing what we've taken already? If they don't care, then fuck them. Let's just go over there and keep the war going. We have ships now. Some of them got damaged because we were sitting here on our hands playing diplomat. I find Christian to be a great character, but it is often the same thing where even if she's in charge, she's the voice of reason that people are going to ignore at their own peril, and she'll have to clean up the mess afterwards.
Somehow the underdog at the top.
It's a peculiar place to keep her at. I don't mind her being a more virtuous character and a more morally upright character, but at the same time, I just have to scratch my head and go, just listen to this person at this point. She's factually saved the universe like 10 times over, but people are more willing to listen to Holden than they are Christian. And is it just because she's a politician? Is that it? Because Monica's questioned her.
How much of it is because she's a woman?
Do you think that's a part of it?
I don't know. I guess, like, quite possibly. I think it's probably more that she's a politician, but maybe.
I think both.
Like, Holden's a white dude. Like, there's a long history of people choosing to listen to white dudes over anybody else.
It is a true statement. We get a lot of pushback in the series against Christian, fair or not, but there's always a lot of pushback. And it's because she's the establishment, she's the power, she's the top dog. And so you want there to be pushback, but I think sometimes the series stretches itself thin to find a way to do it, and I just can't suspend my disbelief of, like, how do people keep doubting her at this point?
When she's proven herself so much.
And it's because, in this case, people are fueled by their own biases, by their own bigotries, by their own desires, by their own hatreds. And Christian's not a perfect character either. Like, when she sees Monica's report, her response is, well, we can't put that out. It makes us look weak.
And Monica's like, we are weak.
That's the point.
Like, we have to acknowledge that we all are vulnerable, that we all are losing. It can't just be putting a human face on the Earthers. That won't do what you want it to. And it's not just about using these to change the mind of the Belters, but also to change the mind of Earthers and the Inners, and, like, to address everybody and everybody's prejudices.
That Monica hits the nail on the head there, and I love how it's performed as well. Monica has just been through a horrific event. She's still covered in blood and ash, and she's very despondent throughout this entire episode. She's reached her limit. She's recording these bodies. She's not going to take anyone's shit, including Christians, and she's not even passionate.
Doing the job.
She's beyond the threshold now. She's gone through hell and back, and she's here to follow it through in the end. And I thought the performance really stood out in that way. Just, she's clearly traumatized, but she doesn't have time for that, because what she's doing is actually important. Like, Monica was skeptical about doing this at the beginning, and in the matter of 2 to 3 episodes later, she's treating it as this is the most important thing in the war itself.
It's her part to play. Christian sold her on that. And now Christian's eating her words a little bit.
Everyone has their part to play in this battle. in this fight for survival. And
Drummer is to light a fire under Marco and try and kick him when he's down, and she doesn't even know it. I love her message so much. And I love the guy's reaction of like, so much for anonymity. Like, Drummer's fucking pissed and she's gonna let Marco know about it.
but she's enjoying herself too. Like, she's enjoying having to fuck over Marco,
satisfied.
not being on the back foot,
Mm-hmm.
not having to run away. This time we're attacking. And yes, there's going to be losses, but your losses will be more than ours. Raise the bounty. Try and kill me. Doesn't matter. Because I did this to you.
I took back what you stole. And it's so juicy.
Yeah, this episode really captured perfectly and had a variety of ways in which people in this war all are doing their part and think of themselves as justified or the heroes of their story.
Part of the war machine.
There are some who are conflicted. There are some who are unsure of if this is the right way to go about things or their place in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are some like Monica who's like, I truly believe this is the cause. And then there's Drummer who not only believes that this is right and she's disgusted by the person she's fighting against, but she is relishing this opportunity. She's enjoying it. Out of all of the people in this episode who's in the thick of it, who's in the mud, who's in the fight, she's probably the only one that's enjoying the chance of doing it.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Amos wants to, but it's just not happening.
No, and
Bobby wants to, but it's just not happening.
nah. Christian doesn't want to, and even the MCRN Admiral, whatever she is
speaking the party line.
Yeah, but she doesn't seem keen on the idea of attacking Medina.
But they're going to, because that's the job. That's what they need to do. That's what Martians do. They take the fight out there. If we'll do it ourselves. And I loved all of the raid stuff from Drummer. I thought the introduction was great, in which you have them in their space suits. We just see them standing there. Like, we don't even see what they're on. We don't know if they're flying around. We see their little air jutting out, and it's just a great image because it's them in the blackness of space, all with a mean mugging look on their face.
Like
I loved it.
The antithesis of that moment in Guardians of the Galaxy,
Yes.
where they're all in the brightly coloured suits.
And they're having gags and goofs. You know what this made me think of as well as an antithesis?
Mm-hmm.
Star Trek Picard had two...
I had a feeling it was going to be Star Trek.
No one ever thinks of Picard. But he had 2 episodes in 2 separate seasons in which the pitch was, we're going to have an Ocean's 11 run and gun raid or mission in a caper that we're going to have against the bad guys.
Picard gets an eye patch in one of them.
And although we wanted them to be funny and goofy, it wouldn't have matched the tone of that show. And in the end, those episodes are sloppy, disgusting messes and awful. I bring this up because although it isn't an Ocean's 11 run and gun fun type thing, it did have that vibe of like, this is the appropriate amount of like fun, enjoyable version of this without going over the line. It is the exact right amount of fist pump, oh yeah, we're doing this is badass, without going too far or without going enough. Where Picard went one way or the other. It was like, oh, for an episode in which they have to sneak past an alien that smells lies and one of them's dressed up as a pimp, it's actually quite weird that this is dour somehow.
Yeah.
Or the second season one in which it's now like, oh, let's watch Agnes, possessed by the Ball Queen, sing a song to distract people. What the fuck? That's so stupid. I bring it up because throughout all of this stuff, from the very beginning in which we have Kamina with all of the makeup on, still in her space outfit, scowling and being like, all right, guys, let's get real with it, to phoning up Michio on the ship and being like, check again, to her flying down and doing all of the medical stuff. All of it was just so entertaining.
Yeah, it had a really great pace to it. Even though we were cutting back and forth, the scenes themselves, as well as how they're interspersed within the episode, felt really good. Like, it really hit the ground running.
They cut to the meat of the matter. As soon as they were like, this is a bit weird, already in a gunfight. You already know what the payoff is going to be. As you say, the predictability factor, this is alleviated during Drummer's stuff because they know you know, let's just get to it.
Yeah.
This person's dead, this one's injured, this one's got into a trap.
They don't waste our time.
Yeah, they're not wasting the time.
Whereas the Laconia stuff feels like it's wasting our time.
Did the one ship, based on Drummer's crew, make this even better?
Yes. Yes, it did. It did, because I felt more having that context for Michio being the one that saves Joseph and Joseph being the one that saves Kamina from the falling crate in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
I cared more about those interactions having the context of the one ship. Like, it was still there from what we got in the episode 1, but it was deepened because of the one ship.
I was feeling the emotional heft of it because I know
felt
these two
more
characters' relation.
connected.
Yeah, I was more connected of when she kissed him and said, know that I love you, and then she has to cut off his fucking arm. It actually meant something to me because these two characters have had a dynamic in the series, but more in that one ship. But if you haven't seen that one ship, this still works because of one other reason too, which is Michio starts off the season as a fuck-up. She has no skills that they can utilize, seemingly. She's a danger to them.
She's too on edge to do her job properly. Thus, she presses the wrong fucking button.
But this episode shows that even the quote-unquote weak people or the liabilities do have a purpose. They do matter. It actually...
And also that maybe she was right that she just needed a little bit longer and that she would do better next time. Like, that's what she kept on saying to Drummer. Like, don't get rid of me. I'll do better. I'll do better. And they were just like, well, you haven't been doing better and we can't lose anymore. And we don't want you to die.
But this...
Or us.
But this also shows that maybe they're trying to shove a square peg into a round hole. Maybe she was never going to be suited for the job of shooting down ships and flying around. She's a medic. Because they don't know what they're doing. You see Drummer start to freak out at all of this, and Michio just flies down there, runs down there, immediately is cool, calm, and collected. Even though this is a person she loves, and she has to do this heinous thing, she is on top of it, because that's her role. And this actually, Drummer's stuff, the crew, the ship, even Walker, who's this new character that's come on, makes something about the Rocinante a bit less for me.
Yeah. But that's a part of what they're doing with the Rossi at the moment, is that it's a fractured crew.
Yeah, but I was going to say this one thing, which is none of the Rocinante have what Michio has, which is we're trying to force someone to serve a specific function that they may not be best at because the chips are down. Everyone can just do the thing. Like, Naomi can just fly the ship. Holden can just fly the ship because
Everybody
they have
can
to.
do anything.
Because they have to. Yeah, Alex is dead, but guess what? I guess it didn't matter too much because Holden's really good at flying the ship, apparently, because he had to learn it. Well, in season 5, he had to have Bull there because he didn't know how to fly the ship. Well, I guess he picked it up in the 6 months real quick. And that's what Drummer's crew has in abundance more. And I actually connect with the crew relationship of Drummer's one more than I do with the Rocinante because I think there's a believability to it. I believe Michio's arc, even though it's been, how many episodes? 4? Her story's been told in 4 episodes, and it's been a very background element. But when she stepped up and said, I can do this, and she cuts off his arm and saves his life, I 100% bought into it because they had the lead up of they had her in a position she wasn't suited for, and we discover what she's actually good at, which is a type of story that I find satisfying most often. And was it good for you? Like, were you happy to see her?
Oh, yeah. I
stuff?
was happy for her to be thriving in the chaos. And it really does feel satisfying, like she's found her place and that she's justifying her presence as well.
She's a good side character. This season, for being short, it's finding the time to give minor players their moments.
Yeah. We've been on board with Drummer this whole time, particularly this season. A character that we have not been on board with has been Philip.
Well, yes, on board is like we support them. As a character, we've liked Philip. Like, he's an enjoyable character.
Fun.
Like, he's
His
a
story
fascinating,
very interesting.
complex.
Yes, and sometimes we have been like interested in him as a character and his story and feeling involved, and sometimes we have felt more disconnected and more them using him as a prop for the storylines and moving him around and the writer's influence being felt. And in this episode, we have him as sort of part of his punishment for standing up to his father. In the last episode, he is on cleanup duty.
He's having to do the dirty work.
And, and on the course of that, he connects with a belter who has a brother back on Ceres and learning practical skills and, but I'm wondering how you felt about Philip's story in this
The way
episode.
you described it sounds like you didn't enjoy it, or you found it maybe not as developed as the episode itself does. I was iffy about it because I was iffy, but at the end of it all, I actually thought this was a very important story.
Yeah, it definitely pulls itself together because this was one where I wasn't sure where it was gonna go. I think Philip is still wanting to have conviction while he still has doubts.
He wants to be a man with a soul, and
But he also wants to be his father's son, and we know that he can't really have both.
Well, here's the thing, though. It's not. I even removing it from being his father's son, I think Philip is so guilt-ridden that he can't bring the idea that he is a person with a soul. He's in this weird area in which, he's in a purgatory in a way where he's torturing himself, because if he is soulless, then he could get by with what he's done and who he is. and what he's capable of.
Including killing his friend, which
gets brought up, which Rosenfeld uses against him really well.
That in there.
She really, but it's a great moment too, because how much of Philip's stuff is different to his father, in which it's a thing to put on to make himself feel better. Marco does all of these psychologically fucked up manipulative things to make Marco feel more justified and comfortable with his actions. How different is Philip in the long run? That's what that statement brought up of like, what, you're going to shoot me in the face, feign feeling guilty about it, and send money to my family as a replacement for anything actually real? Because that's what Philip's done. And has he changed in that way? And this story is the test of that. He makes a new friend.
Has he learned anything?
He makes a new friend. He's been stripped, or he's stripping himself of being Philip Anaris. He's just a guy. He fucks shit up. He finds what it's like to be one of the people who serves on the ship. He gets to see firsthand experiences, or more personal experiences, of the toll of Marco's war. So does this change him? Does this actually alter him? Does he learn from this? And the answer is yes and no, which is exactly the correct way to play it, because that's always been Philip.
I felt satisfied that he's still yo-yoing. He's still in free fall, but he wants to be certain. And I also enjoyed the way that I could read into his expressions a lot. Like, the performance I thought was really good in this episode in particular. Like, he got a lot to chew on. But I was thinking of that in particular when they're on the skiff. Skip or skiff?
Skiff.
They're on the skiff and he gets distracted by the news. And I was just like, oh, he's wanting to hear his mum.
He's also just wanting to know if it's his fault, because he stood by. He said stuff, but he didn't do anything to stop this from happening. In a roundabout way, this is his fault still, because he is a party to it all. He is the right hand of Marco. That's brought up in this episode. We need you to be up there, to be the man that talks to your father, to guide him, because no one else can. And he's not sure that he can without having to compromise himself. You know what else helps this along too? The guest performance from the guy that he's tagging along with.
Yeah, like he feels like a whole person straight away.
He's likable. He's believable. How so, though? Like, how did this, not only the performance, but the writing manage to make this work without it feeling so just on the nose or labored? Because realistically speaking, this guy and Philip probably get maybe 7 minutes of screen time in the episode, and yet you and I both come away with the same reaction about it.
I think it is the balance of script and performance. The script has him very clearly defined, and the performance brings the reality of a person, not just a person who's there to teach Philip a lesson by existing, but a person, and a person who will continue to exist beyond his engagements with Philip.
Is it fail safe? It must have malfunctioned. You want to know what you look like? You're an asshole.
And Marco's losing it throughout this episode. He's being called on the fact that the skirmish, and that's what it was a skirmish that we lost, rattles him, and that it's not rolling off of his back, and it should. Marco is a man who is going to blame everyone else for his mistakes. And a part of that is make them space their own men for fucking up in this battle that I fucked up. And if they complain, space the captain. And it's like, Marco, no way. And he's deadly serious, and Rosenfeld stands up to him. She doesn't follow his order to the letter. And she explains to him about how you aren't being wise and you need someone to tell you when you're wrong and to tell you how to do things correctly. And that was very bold of her, but she's right. Because what is the end game for Marco at this point?
We don't really know. We assume that it's connected to Laconia and Medina in some way. But it feels like it's disconnected from what he originally said, which was like he wanted to make the belt in charge of everything. And he has abandoned the belt.
He's a 101 type psychopathic tyrant in which they say their agenda, but even if they get it, they'll keep finding ways to risk it all and fuck it up. And he's a man that's going to be the source of his own destruction because he's insecure. At the end of the day, he's an insecure, weak-willed man who may be clever and may be dangerous and may be charismatic, but he's also weak. He's still whining about Naomi in this episode.
Yeah. What Philip's mother did to me?
I can't let it get away with that. He's so pathetic. It's always difficult to make a pathetic villain a compelling villain, but they do it. They manage to make him a very interesting, toxic male, weird guy. I love Marco. I loved him in this episode. I love Rosenfeld. I know I've talked very positively about her character over the last, since she's been introduced, and you've had some words or two about her. But this episode, this was really her episode. Like, she really had some great moments to step out and let us know who she is, what she believes in, and what she's capable of doing to get it.
She wants Medina for herself. She wants control. And she's trying to prove that she's worthy of holding that position. So she's betting everything on Marco.
She's not dumb. She knows that these two Inaro skies are psychologically damaged enough not to trust. But they are in positions of power, so we have to leverage them. So she's doing her job to the best of her abilities, so that way she can secure herself a throne of her own. What did he say to be like the it was something like to be like in charge of like the crossroads
empires.
Yeah, the crossroads of empires. And it's like, yeah, because I deserve it. Like, I think I've proven that I've earned that. Just amazing stuff. I think she's such an interesting character. But again, I want to hear your opinions about this character. We've had her for only this season, and she's very much made a presence for herself in a side of the story that has really, really standout characters in it.
I like what she brings to the story, and I like what she brings to the world of there is this person who is willing to do all of this heinous shit, but is out for themselves and wants the position, wants the respect, wants the victory.
At the start, I thought Marco found someone just as fucked up as he is, but as the season's gone along, she's become the much more logical, pragmatic one, but also a manipulator, also someone playing a big game of their own. So how do you read her as a person?
A glorious piece of shit. To summarize it, a glorious piece of shit. And one that this world would definitely shit out.
Is she that bad? Realistically speaking? Realistically speaking, is she not the best leader that the Marco faction actually has? Like, if things were under her control, I don't doubt that she would actually fulfill a lot of what Marco says he wants to do in the long term. But she's amoral still. Like, she's willing to fuck over Sirius Station to win the war. But I feel like she's opportunistic, but also realizing that, oh, I'm the only adult in the room. Because there's a literal child that I have to compete with, and a guy who's basically acting like a child. I don't know. Was she ever a believer of Marco? Was she someone that found an opportunity?
I think she found an opportunity.
I feel like she did believe in him, and he's just
Ruined it?
Yeah, I think he's lost her faith, and now she's just going to exploit him just like how he exploits others. You want to talk about your two favorite characters now?
You just jokingly said my favorite two characters. One of the top reviews of the one shot that we just covered, Win or Lose, the title was about Amos and Bobby being this person's favorite two characters in the entire show.
I love that you will always call it the one shots instead of the one ships. I've had to keep telling Rachel off mic, they're called one ships.
What?
Because they're one shot stories.
Yeah.
I understand. It is one of those. But no, I get why these are people's two favorite characters. And so when getting to see them bond means something.
We cared more about Bobby. Like, she's better than she was, but
again, we talked about it in the win or lose discussion, but I wish that this was the series. I wish that this was her role in the series way more often. I wish that this leaned into what stuff like Farscape did, in which you had a fun, interesting character. Let's make them a part of the crew and see what happens.
And I really enjoyed the scene that they have together, kind of bonding over Alex's music. They both sing along, and it's a nice reminder that they both cared about him and that they can still connect to Alex, but they're also connecting to each other through his memory. And I also like the song.
They've done a lot of callbacks and touching on the fact that Alex is no longer here, that here's something that reminds us of Alex, or here's something that lingers of Alex, or here's something that's missing that Alex used to bring.
I also like that they really the line that Bobby has about him playing it on the Razorback, really underscoring how long they were fucking stuck on that ship together. And I was like, oh yeah, that fucking sucked for us too, was the audience.
But we never got to see him play this music with her on the Razorback. It would have been nice. No, I love this. I like Bobby and Amos bonding over not only Alex, but also their anger at the fact that the missile in the last episode was a dud.
Yeah. I love how quickly Peaches finds out Holden's lie. I am like, yeah, they're an efficient crew. Somebody was going to find out quickly, and I like that it was Peaches.
I also like how Holden reacts to all of this with the simple understanding of course, people found out. It was going to be found out. He knew that this mistake he made, or this choice he made, was a short-term one. He was not going to be able to keep this hidden for long, but he could pretend.
He also didn't want to confront it either.
Of course not.
He knew that he couldn't hide, but he wasn't going to go seek.
Amos is disappointed in Holden because Holden is supposed to be his moral compass. Holden's supposed to be the man of virtues. Holden's supposed to be the guy
who will lead us to victory. And we could have had victory, and you didn't do it. You pulled the punch.
And why? And why?
I need you to explain it to me. And Holden's just like, I don't owe you shit.
So is that because you're angry at me or because
You're
you don't have an
angry
explanation?
yourself.
Yeah. Holden has no explanation that
No.
means anything to the rest of the
Amos.
crew. Only to one person.
Yes. And then he goes and talks to Naomi. And I loved that scene. And it didn't matter to me that this is exactly what I thought it was.
It needed to be this. Again,
'Cause
it's about
I
honest storytelling.
Believed him.
I believed her.
I haven't lost my mind. I know what that choice meant, but I couldn't kill your son.
If you let Marco escape to spare my feelings, you just made me responsible for everyone he kills from now on.
You're not responsible for my choices.
Then stop making yourself responsible for mine.
Let's talk about Naomi's points and how it was exactly what we said is the fact that she would be resentful of the fact that he did this on behalf of her, that he is now going to have to explain to everyone why Marco's future killings are actually Naomi's fault, because I had to let Marco live because I couldn't pull the trigger because it would hurt Naomi's feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And now Naomi has to internalize that and be like, oh, I'm so fucked up that I am now responsible for this war even more so.
Yeah.
And it's like, is that fair on her?
All over again. Because it's just like, well, if I saw what Marco was going to become, then I could have put a stop to it before it was a thing. But now it's like, well, he could have died then, and he isn't dead because of me, not because of a choice that I made. I didn't have agency in that choice. And it's weirdly echoing Marco's use of her code without her consent.
Yeah. Again, the way that they're connecting Holden and Marco without having them be in scenes together has been
they've
really
been
effective. And they
building that
don't draw big attention to it all the time.
Because, like, when Marco had conversations with Naomi and she's just like, Holden's a man that you will never be, or twice man that you'll ever be, and all of that kind of shit. But the fact that both of them have done things on Naomi's behalf that she has trouble dealing with.
It hasn't consented to and wasn't allowed to have a voice in.
But they both believe that it was in her best interests.
But they don't consider the fact of how strong and willing she is to do things on her own behalf. She mentions that I went there to save Philip and I failed. And instead of sitting there and crying and killing myself to be a mother martyr, I left. I have to accept that Philip is a grown man who's made his own choices. And if those choices mean that he has to die, then he has to die. I've accepted that. I literally threw myself into the vacuum of space over this.
I was ready to die for that.
And now you're telling me that that's not true and not good enough. And all of Naomi's points were valid. I thought the actress, Dominique Tipper,
both of them.
Yeah, I thought it was really well performed. Like, she had the right amount of emotional. Like, I never felt it was overplayed or too, like, loud and bombastic. There was a quietness to it that I found very genuine. Because if you've ever been in an argument with someone, especially a partner, some of the most cutting moments of it is when things are quiet. And I thought that was really well done. And then you have Holden's side. We were saying last episode that we don't agree with Holden's decision, but we understood why he did it. And this is him now getting to put words to those actions. And you said that you understood his points of view and you agreed with them, and you that's the thing. We see both sides of this argument here. So what about Holden's side do you agree with, and how did he articulate it in a way that worked for you?
Him being like, I know that our relationship couldn't survive me being the one that killed your son. You can't wake up to me, next to me, every day knowing that I did that. Even if you know why and you agree why, that is basically too heavy of a burden on our relationship, and it would break it. And I don't want us to break.
And is that a good enough excuse for unleashing havoc to the system at large? No, it isn't. And he knows it isn't. But he also has to say, when does it stop? When can I say I can't do this?
Yeah. And then he gets more into that with Peaches, with her being like, it's always okay to not kill somebody. And that's not the rhetoric that we've had a lot in this show.
Not in this season in particular. Like, Holden gets called out on it by Peaches of, the moment I knew not to kill you was when you said this to Ashford. And Holden laughs about oh yeah, but here I am not taking that advice of, can't we try something other than violence for once? But here we are.
Trying to kill our way to a better future. I think I messed up that line, but I love
the essence
that
is there.
moment.
And here's a point when he brings up that I see every time we kill one of another Belter ship that it hurts you more and more and it lessens you more and more. And that a part of the frustration here too is Naomi's acting as if nothing is going on, but things are going on.
Yeah,
Naomi, things are
she
bad.
doesn't want to acknowledge her weakness. And that she is frail, that she is vulnerable, that she's human.
And it's not even that she's not admitting them with words. She has. It's about actually taking action and doing those steps further, because I think this season has been all about the Rocinante crew feeling as if they have no choice in what they do. They just have to do it because that is required. And Holden made a choice for once this season. He says, I can't do this. And he may be getting pushback and he may be getting resentment for it, but Peaches is right. That conversation with Peaches at the end, it's no surprise to anyone, but it's my favorite scene in the episode. It's my favorite scene maybe this season. I love Clarissa Mao as a character, and I've had a lot of problems, or at least I've had a lot to say about the relationship between her and Holden and how existent and non-existent it has been. But we have come back to it again, and I'm glad in the long run this is how they've handled it. It's not just they had one conversation and now they've washed their hands with it. It's an ongoing dialogue. And
I appreciate that scene more in retrospect from, it was last episode where she was just like, hey, I wanted to kill you this whole time. You know that, right?
But I killed innocent people along the way and it's ruined me and I am forever haunted. And that comes up again at the beginning of her conversation too, in which I killed so many people, some of them deserved it, many of them didn't. But that's not the point. That was a little tangent on her part.
They all haunt her.
They all haunt her, that we don't have to feel good about killing people. It's okay not to do it because that stays with you. And we get layover of Naomi looking at the footage of Philip and, that they had in the last episode and this look on her face of being conflicted about the issue. And again, Peaches, for a character that started out as a very one-dimensional villain type of I must get revenge for Daddy, has...
And I've said it before, and I'm saying it again. The fact that she is now Peaches and not just Clarissa again, like, she feels evolved.
We've often drawn from this well, but I just love doing it, which is I have always loved how The Expanse talks about violence and how it handles violence, specifically death and murder from our main characters, because
They do it, and they do it often.
but also they know, but also there's many times where they don't, and there's many times in which they show mercy and they have a questioning of like, do we just kill this person or not? And they've always had an ongoing discussion about it from the days of Holden and Miller butting heads about him shooting that scientist in quotations cold blood, to Holden having to destroy those humanitarians so that they didn't spread the news about Eros Station, to so on and so forth, like sparing the lives of antagonists that they've met along the way. And if they didn't have those things, then we wouldn't have Clarissa Mao here telling Holden something that he has forgotten, and yet not only being told it would remind him, but here is a person that is here is a person that's been changed for the better because of this viewpoint that he's been giving to the universe at large. Like, he has someone right in front of him who has shown him that he has been correct, that we can be better, we can change, and that it's okay to say no more to killing. And we get a little bit of funniness with it too.
Mm.
The salt.
Mm-hmm.
The food sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And so she just keeps over-salting it. And I just love the little smiles between him chugging his coffee and her eating the saltiest food ever. I just thought it was very sweet and nice. She reminded me of Lockley from Babylon 5 with her love of sugar. And now here's Peaches with her love of salt. Those two ladies would get on like a house on fire.
The thing that chaps my ass is we hit 1,000,000-to-1 shot coming across the pallet in the first place. Hit another 1,000,000-to-1 beating 3 ships, and when it's time to take the kill shot, another 1,000,000-to-1. It's a dud? What are the fucking odds?
Based on your numbers, 1,000,000,000,000-to-1.
We finally reach the question. Is this episode yum or yum yum? Yum being bad, yum yum being good. Ryan, what is Redoubt for you?
You throw it to me first.
I do.
Even though I just did a bunch of talking. And I think people know where I'm going to land on this anyway. I'm more keen to know what you are going to land on, but I am a yum yum.
Yum yum.
This is the best kind of episode for me, in which when I watched it, I had a great time. But being able to talk about it and reflect upon it and dissect it and discuss it has made my appreciation for it even greater. Go back to the start of this episode in which I'm like, oh, it was solid, reliable, and now here I am at the end of this all thinking, was this the best episode of the season thus far? Maybe. I got a lot out of this.
Yeah, it is one of the better episodes. It's a yum yum from me as well.
Yum yum.
Because it is solid, and it has a good number of moments where I am like just so in tune with these characters and getting so much out of these conversations that they're having, and then in turn having a great amount of fun with you and getting a lot out of the conversations that I'm having with you about the episode.
Are you ready to hear about what the next episode is? The penultimate episode of
I'm
the
not
final...
ready for it to be the penultimate.
Sorry, it's the penultimate episode of the final
Well,
season.
we got the one ship first.
We've got the one ship. We've already made our predictions in our one ship discussions. The next episode of The Expanse is Season 6, Episode 5, Why We Fight. We don't know anything about this episode. We have not watched it. We haven't looked at thumbnails, descriptions, nothing. We are just going on our gut feeling and what we've been going through with the series, and we'll make our predictions. Rachel, you may not be ready for the penultimate episode, but it's coming nonetheless. And I want to hear your thoughts on what could be happening in Why We Fight.
I really want Philip to get off the Pella. I want him to get off the Pella. And I don't think it's going to happen, but I want him to get off it. Because I want them to be able to take the Pella down without Philip being there.
What would take him off that ship? Like, what does he have to go through or see or do to be convinced to finally leave?
I don't know. I honestly don't think at this stage he's going to be able to leave. I think he's going to be sent.
Oh, you think he's going to be sent away?
Yeah.
But
I don't want it to be that, but I'm like, maybe it will be that.
As an arc, I don't know if that would be satisfying. I think we need him to make the choice.
To stand up and to continue pushing back against his father.
We need him to decide to leave.
But when we left him at the end of this episode, that did not seem to be where he was going.
No.
So I don't know. I do think that they're going to manage to keep a lid on it, and it's just going to be like Peaches, like Bobby's not going to find out that it was Holden that did the nuke thing. I think Marco is going to do something with the nuke that they found more specifically.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the MCRN is going to go forward with the attack on Medina, and I think it's going to fuck up. It's not going to go well. It's not going to go right. And
Marco will use his Laconian ships on them.
Yeah, I think that there's going to be something with the Laconian ships and maybe the red goo monsters as well.
Okay. Why We Fight makes me think of Christian's speech at the end of the 5th season about us banding together, Martians, Earthers, Belters. This is what he fears. And this is why we're going to fight. So I think Christian is going to be a centerpiece of this episode. I think she's going to find out about the Martians and their sneak attack and try and make some headway on that. But I think she's going to bump into Drummer. Because Drummer at the end of this episode takes all of the supplies and she's going to give them back to the people that Marco stole it from, which is Sirius Station. But to go to Sirius Station, she has to go through the UN. To go through the UN, you need to go through Christian. And Christian is all about forming relations. And I think her and Drummer are going to strike up a deal. I think they're going to benefit one another. Christian has yet to get or at least in this episode, get the news about the super yeast from Prax. We're still waiting on that to come in, but I'm hoping that will come in as well as like a real big bargaining chip that Christian can use as a form of diplomacy between her and the Belters. I think that's going to be a big part of it. Another thing is we have Laconia still. We get those intros. We obviously are assuming that she's going to bring her brother back to life, but will it be also that the orbital platform in the sky is actually properly activated and it flies off? Yeah. That's something I'm wondering if that's going to be present in the series at large, let alone the next episode. But those are my big predictions on the next episode. You hit a lot of ones that I also am thinking of, but I was thinking of those specific things about Drummer and Christian because of the title. And maybe Monica's reports will keep going further and further as well, and that would be nice. But the series, we have 2 episodes left. Then that's it. Then that's it for the show. So, what do you think will happen in the end of this all, at the end of this all, and what don't you think will happen? Like, what things will pay off for you, what things won't, but also just in general, what are your thoughts going forward of stuff that will be happening over
especially
these last 2 episodes?
I think it was in the one ship that they brought up that the Rossi isn't at full capacity. So I do wonder if something else is going to happen with that idea of them getting a crew or them giving up the ship.
They might get into another skirmish and be low on supplies because there was this weird moment.
The Rossi.
Yeah, the Rossi. There was this weird moment when in the previous episode when Bobby joined the ship, where they were getting all the supplies from that one guy, and he's just like, "Oh yeah, we're all working together, huh?" And there was just like something odd about that scene. I don't know if that'll pay off. Any other big predictions? 2 episodes left, Rach. How's Marco going to get defeated?
I still think it's going to be Philip. I still want it to be Philip.
But in what way?
I don't know exactly.
Well, we got 2 episodes left. Come on.
I don't know. You give a prediction.
I think Marco's going to fly into Laconia and they're going to shoot him out of the sky. I think that's what's going to happen. I think he's going to be backed into a corner and he's going to run to people who he thinks are his allies, but they've progressed in a way where they don't need him anymore and they're going to destroy him. And he's going to be killed by the next power-hungry, game-changing villain. Laconia, yeah. I would love it if, even in that way, it pays off in the season. I'd love it if it pays off even in that way. The red goo alien stuff, they had a little reference to it in this, in which Naomi was looking at the stuff. I still think Dr. Elvie is going to come in and give us some bizarre exposition about, like, the patterns mean this thing, but I have no clue what to make of the interdimensional alien stuff and if it will pay off. I don't think it will in any way in this season. That's just going to be books. And my big final prediction of this all for now is I think that we are going to end the series on Holden being the next Secretary General.
That's a big call.
Him being the Sheridan equivalent, where he became president of the universe because he was so wise. I think it's like after Christian's done, Holden's going to be lined up to be that guy. I think he's going to be the president of the galaxy. Yes, I think that's going to be the big thing. And that's it. That's all we have to say about The Expanse for now. People, if you have enjoyed what we have said here and discussed here and you want to hear more, you can head on over to our Patreon, in which we release these episodes early. That's right. You can hear the rest of our thoughts on the series for The Expanse. You get to talk to people in our community Discord, and you get a variety of other bonus content that doesn't make it onto the main feed. We have a whole tier in which we talk about different movie series, whether they be Star Trek or Star Wars or Aliens or who knows what else is there. If you have the means to do so, please come over and support the podcast. If not, you can share the episodes about. You can share the show and the podcast to all of your friends, families, and foes, people you think would enjoy hearing other folks talk about The Expanse. Rate and review the podcast on whatever podcasting site allows you to do so. And Rachel, what else can people do in regards to the podcast?
I
know it's hard to remember. It's all in the description of the episode, thankfully, so you can just read through that and be reminded of how you can contact us or where you can follow us.
Yeah. You can email us at yumyumpod@gmail.com. Check out those socials, which, Brian conveniently links.
All of it is in the description. Rachel, we are going to head out of here, but as always, we have to say who we think will suddenly appear. What callback do we have left that they've yet to cash in?
Well, Dr. Accent died, so it can't be him. Miller's ex-wife.
Muss. We've never seen Muss again either.
Oh, yeah.
We
never met Miller's ex-wife.
No, she just exists in the background. What about Muss? Whatever happened to her?
I want to see the kitty again. I want to see the kitty.
Do you think the cat's all right?
Fat Earther?
Yeah. It's going to be fine. The cat's fine because he was fine. I think that's kind of the vibe of it.
And Monica was fine.
Monica was fine. Like, they didn't get hit by the explosion. They were around the corner, thankfully. But hopefully the cat returns. That reminds me. Do you think we will see Julie's robot hamster again? Remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Do you remember when there was robot pets in this show and then that's never come up again? In all honesty, I am thinking of someone in particular that we could see before the end of the series or even in the last episode itself.
Mm-hmm.
Alex's wife.
Yeah. Slash kid.
They've had a lot, like we've talked about it already, but I am surprised with the amount of reverence they've had for the character of Alex. I know that, you know, the actor who played him was a shitty person, so that doesn't mean the character needs to be treated like garbage, but there is a point in which I am still surprised that they have kept referencing Alex and the loss of him. And yet we still haven't really had that moment. Like, I don't know if we need his wife, but a part of me would like to see her again, or his kid, to know, like, to have that sense of closure as an audience about Alex, because we just got told off screen they're going to deal with his death.
Also, like, we've touched on it, but, like, how much do you think it's gonna, like, be a farewell tour at the end?
I don't know. I'm not too sure how
are we
we're
gonna
conclude.
get Gaunt Belter again?
We've got to save something for the final one ship, Rachel. It's going to be a day in the life of him running his pirate radio station and him being the face of the news for the belt. We've got to have a day in the life of the Gaunt Belter.
Now Earthers know what it feels like to be Belter.